Don't you like martinis?
Not particularly.
Beautiful faces, glitz and glamour, but behind the silver screen, Hollywood stars often danced with the bottle. Today, we're diving into the shocking stories of the biggest names who struggled with alcohol and addiction.
Have you ever been in Schenectady?
No, I never was in Schenectady.
1. Dean Martin. The King of Cool once remarked, "I feel pity for people who don't drink. When they wake up in the morning, that's as good as they're going to feel all day." Much of Martin's stage persona relied on being a charming drunk, although his daughter and other close friends insisted that it was all an act and Dino only had apple juice in his glass. It was merely the drink and cigarette in his hand that made him more admired. Men wanted to be like him, and women wanted to be with him. Yet he was a caring father, always home for dinner, and only enjoyed one cocktail with his wife in the evening. So even though Dean Martin's career was linked to alcohol, he seemed to flirt with the demon but knew when to stop. Dean passed away in 1995 at the age of 78. 2. Robert Shaw. Massive sharks, rough waters, and irritable co-workers made the shooting of 1975's Jaws a complete nightmare for most of the cast and crew. Robert Shaw sipped scotch throughout the long filming days, which caused friction between him and his co-star Richard Dreyfuss. Shaw appeared intoxicated in nearly all of the movie except for one scene, the moment where his character actually becomes drunk. Richard Dreyfuss later mentioned that he liked Shaw when he was sober, but couldn't tolerate him under the influence. On one occasion, Dreyfuss even grabbed a glass of alcohol from Shaw's hand and tossed it overboard into the ocean. 3. Leonard Nimoy. Leonard Nimoy, or as fans know him, Mr. Spock, struggled with alcohol dependency while working on the legendary Star Trek. Nimoy later admitted that he started drinking to manage the long, exhausting days on set. William Shatner mentioned that Nimoy used alcohol to dull the crushing disappointment of fame. One drink soon became two, and before Leonard realized it, his addictive tendencies took over, and he couldn't stop. He eventually entered rehab after filming Wrapped. Nimoy lived a long life, though his other habit, smoking, eventually contributed to his passing at the age of 83. 4. Cary Grant. Cary Grant struggled with alcohol and sought help in the 1950s to overcome his dependency. To treat Grant's drinking problem, his physician prescribed a then new substance, LSD. Grant enjoyed the experiences he had on the drug and even introduced a few of his friends to it. Judy Balaban, daughter of the Paramount president, recalled, "If it was good enough for Cary Grant, it was good enough for me." It's believed that Grant experimented with LSD around 100 times during his treatment. Ultimately, it transformed his perspective on life, and he went on to live contentedly until his death at the age of 82. 5. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford was wed to the CEO of PepsiCo and was appointed as the official ambassador for Pepsi. Her husband believed this would be a clever business strategy, given her status as a renowned actress. Joan traveled the globe representing Pepsi, and at each stop on her tour, she requested provisions of 2/5 Smirnoff, 1/5 Old Forester bourbon, 1/5 Scotch, and 1/5 Beefeater gin, 2 bottles of champagne, and naturally a case of Pepsi. Despite the lavish demands, Crawford was known for her disciplined work ethic and always delivered polished performances on set. Colleagues often joked about her extravagant drink requests, but few were willing to question her authority or star power. Her public persona as a glamorous and formidable Hollywood icon only grew stronger thanks to her larger-than-life presence both on and off the tour. Thankfully, it was Pepsi, so we didn't have to bring Coke into the mix. 6. Peter O'Toole. It's hard to imagine that someone with such dazzling, piercing blue eyes like Peter O'Toole could be considered one of Hollywood's infamous drinkers. He once told David Letterman that drinking was simply something his generation did, whether they had commitments that day or not. O'Toole claimed that alcohol actually enhanced his performances on the big screen. Despite his heavy drinking, O'Toole was known for his professionalism and charm off-camera, often helping younger actors navigate the pressures of fame. Friends and co-stars recalled that he could be both hilarious and unpredictable at parties, with a wit as sharp as his acting skills. Yet, like many of his contemporaries, his dependence on alcohol occasionally put a strain on his personal relationships and health. Recall the scene in Lawrence of Arabia with the camel raid? Apparently both O'Toole and his co-star Omar Sharif were frightened of camels, so they opted to be completely drunk for the whole scene. They don't call it liquid courage for nothing. O'Toole would chuckle when asked about the scene, admitting he didn't remember a thing. 7. Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra was often described as a functioning alcoholic. He admitted that Jack Daniels was his top choice. His classic drink consisted of 4 ice cubes, 2 fingers of Jack, and a splash of water in a traditional rocks glass. Rumor has it that he sometimes finished an entire bottle of Jack Daniels by himself each day, much to his doctor's astonishment. Sinatra always lived under the spotlight. You could say he embodied the motto, "The best is yet to come," but it wasn't always smooth sailing. When intoxicated, Sinatra could become irritable. Occasionally, he would pick arguments with reporters or fellow actors, so people had to stay cautious. One of his wives mentioned that she would lock herself in their room whenever she saw him drinking gin, because that's when he turned nasty. Frank, along with some of his friends and other Hollywood elites, were jokingly called the American Olympic Drinking Team. Sinatra passed away in 1998 at 82 and was buried with a bottle of Jack Daniels in his casket. 8. Elizabeth Taylor. Liz Taylor was celebrated for her stunning beauty and remarkable talent on the silver screen. Yet she battled alcoholism for many years, along with a dependence on painkillers. In 1983, Taylor became the first major celebrity to check herself into the Betty Ford Center. Betty Ford, the wife of former U.S. President Gerald Ford, had faced similar struggles with addiction before seeking help in 1978, later founding the rehab center to support others. Elizabeth likely had no idea just how deeply her courage to confront her addiction would inspire countless people silently suffering. By openly seeking treatment, Elizabeth Taylor helped bring residential rehab out of the shadows of stigma and into the light of hope and recovery for millions of Americans. Freed from the chains of addiction, Taylor could finally dedicate herself to an even greater mission beyond acting, becoming a passionate advocate for AIDS awareness, prevention, and research. 9. Richard Burton. Naturally, it makes sense to move from Elizabeth Taylor to her ex-husband Richard Burton. Now imagine consuming 2 to 3 bottles of vodka each day. That was Burton's reality at the peak of his alcoholism during the 1970s. He had earned a reputation in Hollywood as a heavy drinker and didn't bother hiding it. On one occasion, he told a director, "I am not drinking on your film," though that merely meant 1 bottle of vodka for the day. Burton claimed he could remain sober even while finishing 2 bottles, but when he indulged, it was always 3 or more. One of his most memorable performances was in 1966's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, where he portrayed a hard-drinking college professor, a role for which he was phenomenal and even earned an Oscar nomination. Burton kept up his drinking during The Klansman in 1974, often filming many scenes sitting or lying down because he couldn't maintain his balance. After completing the project, he admitted himself into a locked rehab facility to dry out. At the time, he was embroiled in a bitter divorce with Elizabeth Taylor and was finally ready to confront his addiction. Unfortunately, the years of heavy drinking had taken their toll. Richard suffered from cirrhosis of the liver and kidney disease, and he passed away in 1984 at the age of just 58. 10. Michael Landon. Michael Landon, famous for his roles on Bonanza and Little House on the Prairie, was often seen as the model of a wholesome, respected television star. He maintained that image for many years. Yet behind the scenes, he struggled with an addiction to alcohol and Valium that frequently overshadowed the polished public persona. His co-stars were aware that he drank occasionally, but they had no clue just how much he consumed during filming. Landon would mix whiskey into his coffee and add vodka to other soft drinks. Once the day's shooting wrapped, he and others would often head to a bar to continue drinking. Despite his struggles, Landon remained highly professional on set, rarely letting his addictions affect his work. Friends noted that he had a charming way of masking his issues with humor and warmth. His dedication to his craft kept audiences captivated, even as he battled personal demons privately. Melissa Gilbert, who played his daughter on Little House, recalled that as a child she had no idea he added vodka to his coffee, but said, "I'm sure he's one reason why I almost always pick men who smell like alcohol." In addition to his drinking and reliance on painkillers, Landon smoked roughly 4 packs of unfiltered cigarettes a day, which likely contributed to the pancreatic cancer that ultimately claimed his life. He was only 54 years old. From Dean Martin to Michael Landon, these stars show that fame often hides personal struggles. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more Hollywood secrets.